Today's day 5 for the Come Follow Me study for this week, July 6th through the 12th. There is a prophet in Israel, 2 Kings 2 through 7. Friday, July 10th, 2026, 2 Kings 6 through 7. 2 Kings 6. Elisha causes an axe to float. 2 Kings 6, 1 through 6. And the sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait or narrow for us. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam, and let us make us a place there, where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with them. And when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. Elder Orson F. Whitney said, God works by law, but there are greater laws and lesser laws, and sometimes the greater suspend the action of the lesser. Miracles are not contrary to law. They are simply extraordinary results flowing from superior means and methods of doing things. When Elisha the prophet raised the sunken axe from the bottom of the Jordan River, he might have done it in a commonplace way, might have laid aside his robes, taken off his sandals, and plunged in like a diver and brought the axe to the surface. But he knew a better way. Plucking a sprig of green from a bush growing on the bank of the river, he cast it upon the water and commanded the axe to float. And the iron did swim, says the sacred record. I believe it. The prophet's act was not contrary to law, but in accordance with law, a higher law than the law of gravitation, which, had not its operation on that piece of iron been suspended, would have kept the axe at the bottom of the stream until raised by some other process. Elder Orson Pratt said, Now, what was it that caused the axe to rise in the water? The same being who gave the law of gravitation, who caused the axe to sink, counteracted that law by a higher law and caused the axe to swim. 2 Kings 6, 7. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. The scarcity of iron and its great value were not sufficient reason to perform such a miracle. The prophet's powers were exerted to help one who was honest enough to be the more concerned for his loss because the axe was not his own. As you try to follow Christ, have you ever felt like Elisha's young servant, outnumbered and fearful? Imagine you were in his place as you read 2 Kings 6, 8 through 23. Elisha reveals to the king how to conduct a war with Syria. 2 Kings 6, 8 through 11. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware, that thou pass not such a place, but thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned of him, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants, and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? The Syrian king suspects a spy among his men. How else could the Israelites elude 3 separate ambushes? How could they know where the Syrians were camped? 2 Kings 6, 12 through 13. And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Syria attacked Israel several times, but was always defeated. When it finally came to the attention of the king of Assyria that his soldiers were losing because of the prophetic power of Elisha, he sent a large army to destroy Elisha. The Syrian army located Elisha in Dothan, where they surrounded the city so he could not escape. 2 Kings 6, 14 through 15. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? Referring to Elisha and his servant being surrounded by the Syrian army, President Jeffrey R. Holland taught, if Elisha is looking for a good time to be depressed, this is it. It is one prophet and one lad against the world, and the boy is petrified. He sees the army everywhere, difficulty and despair and problems and burdens everywhere. With faltering faith, the boy cries, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And Elisha's reply, Horses and chariots of fire protect Elisha. 2 Kings 6:16. And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. President Jeffrey R. Holland continued, In the gospel of Jesus Christ, you have help from both sides of the veil, and you must never forget that. When disappointment and discouragement strike, and they will, you remember and never forget that if our eyes could be opened, we would see horses and chariots of fire as far as the eye can see riding at reckless speed to come to our protection. They will always be there, these armies of heaven, in defense of Abraham's seed. Elisha's servant was then allowed to see the Lord's host that had been sent to protect them. 2 Kings 6:17. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Elder Neal A. Maxwell said the young lad didn't initially see what the prophet saw, but that through the help and prayer of the prophet he was able to see. His eyes were open too. There will be other times when we simply have to trust the prophet, for he will see things we do not see. The prophet Joseph Smith said, I saw Elder Brigham Young standing in a strange land, in the far south and west in a desert place, upon a rock in the midst of about a dozen men, who appeared hostile. He was preaching to them in their own tongue, and the angel of God standing above his head, with a drawn sword in his hand, protecting them, but he did not see it. President James E. Faust said, We are not alone in our mortal struggles. As the prophet Elisha teaches, unseen hosts watch over us. In this day, Syria was at war against Israel, and the prophet Elisha counseled the king of Israel against entrapment. The king of Israel followed that counsel and saved himself again and again. This stirred up the king of Syria, who sent by night horses and chariots in a great host and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? Then the prophet answered, saying, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. With the help of the Lord, the prophet Elisha was able to save Israel. Elder Dallin H. Oak said, When I read this wonderful story as a boy, I always identified with the young servant of Elisha. I thought, if I am ever surrounded by the forces of evil, while I am in the Lord's service, I hope the Lord will open my eyes and give me faith to understand that when we are in the work of the Lord, those that are with us are always more powerful than those that oppose us. Bible stories such as these do not mean that the servants of God are delivered from all hardship or that they are always saved from death. Some believers lose their lives in persecutions, and some suffer great hardships as a result of their faith. But the protection promised to the faithful servants of God is a reality today as it was in Bible times. All over the world, faithful Latter-day Saints are protected from the powers of the evil one and his servants until they have finished their mission's immortality. For some, the mortal mission is brief, as with some valiant young men who have lost their lives in missionary service. But for most of us, the mortal journey is long, and we continue our course with the protection of guardian angels. During my life, I have had many experiences of being guided in what I should do and in being protected from injury and also from evil. The Lord's protecting care has surrounded me from the evil acts of others and has also protected me from surrendering to my own worst impulses. How does this story change the way you think and feel about your trials, your responsibilities, or your efforts to live the gospel? As you ponder, consider President Henry B. Eyring's words. Like that servant of Elisha, there are more with you than those you can see opposed to you. Some who are with you will be invisible to your mortal eyes. The Lord will bear you up and will at times do it by calling others to stand with you. Consider making a list of they that be with you, people God has placed in your life to support you. You might ask Him to help you identify them by opening your spiritual eyes. He has probably also placed you in others' lives to help them. How can you draw strength and support from each other? When have you felt the support that the Lord describes in Doctrine and Covenants 84:88? And whoso receiveth you, there will I be also, for I will go before your face. I will be on your right hand and on your left, and my spirit shall be in your hearts, and mine angels round about you to bear you up. President Russell M. Nelson said, "Teach of faith to know that obedience to the commandments of God will provide physical and spiritual protection. And remember, God's holy angels are ever on call to help us. The Lord so declared, I will go before your face. I will be on your right hand and on your left, and my spirit shall be in your hearts, and mine angels round about you to bear you up." What a promise! When we are faithful, He and His angels will help us. President Gordon B. Hinckley said, "We have nothing to fear. God is at the helm. He will overrule for the good of this work. He will shower down blessings upon those who walk in obedience to His commandments." Such has been His promise. Of His ability to keep that promise, none of us can doubt. The Almighty Himself is at our head. Our Savior, who is our Redeemer, the great Jehovah, the mighty Messiah, has promised, "I will go before your face. I will be on your right hand and on your left, and my spirit shall be in your hearts, and mine angels round about you, to bear you up." Therefore, fear not, little flock. Do good. Let earth and hell combine against you. For if ye are built upon my rock, they cannot prevail. Look unto me in every thought. Doubt not. Fear not. Behold the wounds which pierced my side, and also the prints of the nails in my hands and feet. Be faithful. Keep my commandments, and ye shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. Unitedly, working hand in hand, we shall move forward as servants of the living God, doing the work of His beloved Son, our Master, whom we serve and whose name we seek to glorify. Those called to serve the Lord have the encouraging promise that He will go before them to prepare the way, and His Spirit and ministering angels will assist them in accomplishing His work. When have you felt that the Lord went before you to prepare the way for you to accomplish His work? How might these promises apply to the work He has asked you to do? For example, how have the promises in verse 88 been fulfilled in your life? Referring to the story in 2 Kings 6:8-23, Elder Ronald A. Rasband said, "The lesson is clear. The Lord is with us, mindful of us and blessing us in ways only He can do. Prayer can call down the strength and the revelation that we need to center our thoughts on Jesus Christ and His atoning sacrifice. The Lord knew that at times we would feel fear. I have been there, and so have you. In this church, we may be few in number by the way the world counts influence, but when we open our spiritual eyes, they that be with us are more than they that be with them." How would you use these words to help someone who feels anxious or afraid? The Syrians are smitten with blindness. 2 Kings 6:18-23. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, "Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness." And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, "This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom ye seek." But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come to Samaria, that Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see." And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, "My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them?" And he answered, "Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master." And he prepared great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. Benhadad besieges Samaria, and foodstuff sells for a great price. 2 Kings 6:24. And it came to pass after this that Benhadad king of Syria gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. Josephus explained the apparent contradiction between these two verses. Now when these men were come back and had showed Benhadad how strange an accident had befallen them, and what an appearance and power they had experienced of the God of Israel, he wondered at it, as also at that prophet with whom God was so evidently present. So he determined to make no more secret attempts upon the king of Israel, out of fear of Elisha, but resolved to make open war with them, as supposing he could be too hard for his enemies by the multitude of his army and power. 2 Kings 6:25. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. Instead of trying to take Samaria by force, the king of Syria surrounded it and attempted to starve its inhabitants. The severity of the famine is attested to by this verse. The ass was an unclean animal, and was not to be eaten by an Israelite. The head of an animal was also the most inedible part. To eat bird dung, for what little nutritional value there was in it, also graphically illustrates the severity of the siege. A cab of dove dung would be a little less than 2 quarts. A fourth part, then, would be about a pint. 2 Kings 6:26-27. And as the king of Israel was passing on upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? The king of Israel was simply saying that he could not provide food or drink. 2 Kings 6:28-29. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. Evidently, the famine became so severe that some even resorted to cannibalism. Like Ahab, who had blamed Elijah and sought his life, King Jehoram refused to see that his own actions had caused Israel's problems. Instead, he blamed Elisha and tried to kill him. 2 Kings 6:30-33. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. Then he said, God do so, and more also to me, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. But Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him. But ere the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, See ye now, this son of a murderer hath sent to take away mine head. Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of the master's feet behind him? And while he yet talked with him, behold, the messenger came down unto him. And he said, Behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord any longer? 2 Kings 7. Elisha prophesies incredible plenty in Samaria. 2 Kings 7:1-2. Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, in the gate of Samaria. Then a lord, or officer, or aide, on whose hand the king leaned, answered the man of God, and said, Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. Elder Orson Hyde said, Once on a time there was a great famine in Samaria, and so sore was that famine that a mule's head sold for 80 pieces of silver in the market, and a cab of dove's dung sold for food in the market. I cannot recollect for how much. We should consider it pretty much of a task or penalty to be compelled to use an article like that for food. But the people of Samaria were sorely distressed with famine, and which way to turn to save themselves they knew not. About this time the king of Syria with a large army came to besiege the city, and there was a mighty host of them, and they brought everything in the shape of food that was necessary for the comfort and happiness of man. And although the famine was so sore among the Samaritans, the old prophet Elisha told them that on the next day meal should be sold in the gate of their city at very low figures, lower than it had ever been known to be sold before. A certain nobleman who heard the prophecy of Elisha expressed his doubt of its truth, and he said that if the windows of heaven were opened and meal poured down from above, it could not fall to such low figures. Now see what he got by doubting the words of the prophet. Said Elisha to him, Your eyes shall see it, but you shall not taste it. The Syrian hosts flee at a noise of battle and leave their possessions. 2 Kings 7:3-11. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, and let us fall into the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents, and their horses, and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent, and did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again, and entered into another tent, and carried thence also, and went and hid it. Then they said one to another, We do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told him, saying, We came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. Elder Orson Hyde continued, That night the Lord sent forth the angels of his presence, and they made a rustling in the trees, and sounded like horses' hoofs in chariots, as if the whole country had combined to go out to battle against the Syrians. And they did not know what to make of it, and they were frightened and fled, leaving almost everything they had brought with them in the borders of the town. And as they went, the rustling of the trees and the noise of the horses and chariots seemed to pursue them. And in order to make their burdens as light as possible, they threw away everything they had with them, and their track was strewed with everything good and desirable. Israel takes spoils from the Syrians. 2 Kings 7:12-16. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry. Therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive, and get into the city. And one of the servants answered and said, Let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as all the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, Go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers turned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Elder Orson Hyde continued, The next morning the people of Samaria went out and brought the spoils into the market, and it was overstocked with provisions. and the word of the Lord through the prophet was fulfilled. Now, you see, the Lord knew they had eaten mules' heads long enough, and that they had need of something more palatable. He had had the matter under advisement, no doubt, when the crusade was inaugurated against the people of Samaria, and he in all probability inspired them to take abundant supplies, that they might feel all the more confident on account of their great numbers, being so well provided for. They no doubt calculated that they had this sure thing, little thinking that God was making them pack animals to take to his people what they needed. Their Father in heaven knew that they had need of them, and he sent them, and the people of Samaria brought them into market. 2 Kings 7:17-20. And the king appointed the lord or officer or aide on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the gate. And the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spoke when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And that lord or officer or aide answered the man of God and said, Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, for the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died. Elder Orson Hyde continued, And behold, and lo, the multitude rushed together, just as hungry people will. And this nobleman came out also, and he was trodden down under foot and stamped to death. He saw it, but he never tasted it. That is the reward of those who disbelieve the prophets of God. It was so then, and if the same thing does not occur in every instance, something of a similar character is sure to take place. There was no living faith in that man. He could not believe the testimony of the prophets, and in this he was like some of our, what shall I say, great men, whose faith is weak and sickly, and they think they know it all, and can talk out right and left that which would be best for building up the kingdom of God. In a similar prophecy, Heber C. Kimball prophesied that the saints in the Salt Lake Valley would be able to purchase goods more cheaply than they could back east. The prophecy was fulfilled when thousands came through the valley during the California gold rush.